Greetings, Quester. The Meddlesome Meeples present Tome Talk with Richard and Matt.
So on this segment of Tome Talk, Richard has a book to present to us, which is Fahrenheit 45 by Ray Bradbury. So tell us something about this book, Richard.
Actually, Fahrenheit 451, extra
Fahrenheit.
number.
Well, the one didn't seem important.
Yeah, well...
It's only a little one.
Well, I was going to just start with talking about why it has got that title, because when I picked up this book, and I'd heard of it before, I didn't know why it had this title, but just on the inside of it, inside cover before it actually starts, it tells us Fahrenheit 451, the temperature at which book paper catches fire and burns. So that is why it has this title.
So when Ray Bradbury wrote that, did he have in mind the fact that this book could be burned?
Well, it's a book
that's
about
a worrying
book burning.
sign.
So yeah, basically, yeah, I don't think he was in any fear that this book would be burned, but I think at the time, I mean, this was in the 50s, I think he was a little bit worried about the way society might go in the future, because obviously watching TV was becoming a thing back then, and who knows where that would have led. As we know,
the burning of
not
books,
been too
apparently.
bad. Well, it's one of those dystopian books,
Right.
basically. So I'm quite glad I've been able to read this now, or get round to reading it. I've already read 1984. That's the other bleak vision of the future, that one, by George Orwell. The other one I want to read is Huxley's Brave New World. That's a bit more, still a dystopia, but that's about people being blissed out on Soma.
I hope our listeners share my concern that you have a very bleak outlook of the future. I mean, I'm worried about all these dystopian books you're reading.
It's good to know the kind of future people foresaw back years ago, and just appreciate the fact that it didn't happen like that. And yeah, it's just... So this one, Fahrenheit 451, obviously mainly about the burning of books. Now the main character is called Montague, and he is a fireman. And in this future, people don't really remember that firemen used to put out fires.
So in this, the firemen are actually going around causing the fires.
Yeah, they are. And so basically all the houses are fireproof. I don't know how they've managed to do that. That's just a thing. Part of
Someone should be working on that.
yeah, basically. I think all the stuff in your house would still catch fire, but I don't know. Maybe they make everything
my
fireproof.
house is full of books, CDs, and games, all of which are fairly flammable.
Well, Montague would be straight round there. So basically, books are illegal, and the reason for it is it's considered that it would upset people. Basically, people like
some
to have...
books are upsetting. I mean, I could at this point go back to my comments that I've made previously about Twilight.
Yeah. So that could be burned. Like
I'd be in favour of burning copies of Twilight.
I just have to be really glad that Montague ended up finding and being interested in the books that he did, and that it wasn't just a collection of Twilight. Otherwise, it just could have reaffirmed his life choices at that point. So, yeah, what happens is if they get a call that a neighbour suspects that someone might have books in their house, the fireman will go round, and if they find books, they have the hoses, but they're full of kerosene, and they spray it on the books and then just light a match and burn them all. They have 451 written on their uniforms. Sorry, I don't know why I'm coughing. Need more beer to talk about.
It's all this sort of fire. You're imagining flames in your head, aren't you? And the imaginary smoke
happening.
is making you cough.
Yeah. And so what happens is, in this book, you just kind of get an idea of the kind of world they're living in. It's not one of the ones that explains the situation right at the start. You're just seeing things basically through Montague's eyes, and you learn about his career as you go. And it ends up being very interesting, especially when he goes to talk to his wife, because she is like the classic person in this society. So Montague is someone who's questioning it.
Yeah.
And he
and his wife is pro book burning.
Well, she doesn't even think about books. She has these massive TVs, which he just calls them walls. So 3 of the walls in the living room are just TVs, and she sits in there talking to people all day through them. So it's kind of half TV, half internet.
Right.
She's pestering him to get the 4th wall turned into a TV as well.
I'm sure I've had the same conversation with my wife, but from a different point of view.
Yeah, she just wants more walls back. Yeah, in this room especially. But yeah, and what is actually on the TV is very much reality based. It's not exactly reality TV as we would understand it today. Obviously, this is years before that. But it's more like she has these conversations with people, and some of it is scripted. So she sometimes receives these scripts in the morning, and she has like her parts that she will have to say just to kind of make up this story between her friends.
It does sound very bizarre.
It's bizarre, and she has such a short attention span. You really feel for Montague because he's just trying to talk to her about important things, and she just kind of completely go off on something else, and then go into the living room and start. She has it turned up really loud and start blasting these things out. So, I suppose in the 50s when this was written, you would kind of worry a bit that that's what TV watching was leading to. This kind of short attention span kind of situation.
But if that's the case, where did the fear of the books and the fear that perhaps it could be insulting to people, where did that all originate from?
Yeah, there is a point in the book where Montague's fire chief at his fire station, he suspects Montague of having taken some books from the last burning and hidden them, and he comes round just to basically talk to him, and he sits down and just explains the whole of it to Montague. Like, he turns out to know a lot more about it than Montague does. Montague just knows like the whitewash history version, but this guy Beatty, he explains it all. And yeah, I'm not going to go into the actual details of why it is, but basically, yeah, they do think that this kind of fiction that is in books will just upset people, and they want people to just be happy with this kind of society that they've got and with reality. They often say like books about people that never existed, and that's the main problem with it. So
effectively, the thought is that the government is trying to control the populace, and provide a controlled environment for the populace, and maybe stamping down on anything that doesn't fit into their narrative.
Yeah, there's that kind of thing. Yeah, and just the way that is explained by Beatty is that it kind of happened organically. Beatty was saying that it would work even without the firemen. Firemen are there just to kind of make it look like the government's doing something, but people kind of lost interest in books on their own. But yeah, they needed to just kind of have some kind of official stance on it. But yeah, basically the government is kind of doing just what they want. That becomes more of an issue later on in the book. The aspects of the book that are very noteworthy are the amount of similes and metaphors there are in it. It's written in a very poetic way. I was quite surprised at that, and part of it is the fact that it is a book about books, so it's kind of got to be in a way. There are a lot of quotes, some like biblical quotes, and from classic literature quite a lot. One of the books that Montague ends up with is the book of Ecclesiastes, and he ends up actually kind of memorising that.
What, the original
Bible book?
Text, or?
Yeah, well, the King James version, I think. So I think he had a Bible, and he just kind of happened to turn to Ecclesiastes and ended up just kind of reading through it all. So, yeah, and the interesting thing about this is it's the 50th anniversary copy. So it's actually got a foreword by Ray Bradbury, and he talked about when he wrote it, to actually get some peace and quiet to write the book, he found this basement of a university library where there were these pay typewriters. You could like put in dimes, and then you like have a whole hour with the typewriter. And he just
seems a bizarre concept to me.
Yeah, it's weird,
really
isn't it? Yeah. So while I was reading it, I was also just imagining him writing it there, and the fact that it was under a library as well is that he could just keep going up the stairs and just find some more books to quote. that kind of helps, especially when you're writing a book about other books. I think that was a big help to that. There is also an afterword as well by him, where he explains a little bit more about where the story came from. It came from a few of his short stories that he'd written before. Some of them he'd managed to publish, and some of them he hadn't. There was one called The Firemen, which was a little bit more about just this. There's also one called The Pedestrian, and that was based off a true story from his life, where a policeman randomly stopped him while he was walking along. Basically, I don't think he actually got to know why the policeman had stopped him. He asked what he was doing, and he said, "I'm just walking." And then the policeman kind of got a call that he had to go away. There was like an emergency, and the policeman just left him at, "Don't do it again." And so that gave him the idea of writing a story about a society where walking was illegal. So the pedestrian was basically about someone getting arrested just for walking. And that kind of came into it, also mixed with a story about what someone would miss on the brink of a nuclear war. It's like somebody that was thinking about just basically listing all the things that he's going to miss once the world ends. And just those kind of thoughts kind of went into making this book. There's a few more details of those stories that I'm glad he left until the afterward rather than the forward, because it would have blown some of the story for me anyway. So I think, this edition especially is quite good because you've got the novel in the middle, but then just a bit of background either side. So I would be interested in reading a few more of Ray Bradbury's books, especially since it is so much about normal human life, human interactions, even though it is sci-fi. And the fact that he is so interested in classic literature, and he does seem to want to put that love of books into his own stories as well. I just think it's a very interesting way of writing. So yeah, although it's about a dystopian future, and it's one that you couldn't really see happening. I mean, it all seems so weird.
I think actually, in my mind, I mean, obviously I've not read it, but just from what you said, it's a future that I could see. I mean, we see certain governments wanting to control the media, for example. We live in a world where a number of books are banned, where certain books have caused great upset in particular communities and cultures. We live in a world where people seem to be reading less and less with actual physical books, where a lot of people now do their writing on electronic devices, they're reading on electronic devices, and some of that is a convenience element, isn't it? Obviously, because if you've got like 100 books on a Kindle, or on some sort of tablet that you can just take with you wherever you go, it's handy to have your book library there, and also it's more environmentally friendly for people to have their books that way. But generally speaking, more and more people seem to be moving away from reading books, apart from like your big ones that come through every now and then, like your Harry Potters and things like that just seem to take the world by storm. More people want to watch TV series and TV shows and reality TV and things like that.
But at least it's similar stuff to books though that we get now. And I know it's different, but I mean, we haven't got to the point where, just as an example, Montague's wife is talking about the 5-minute romance that was on last night, stuff like that. We haven't got to that short attention spans yet. We're quite happy to have quite a long story and one with kind of deep characters and complete fiction as well. I know what you mean. Like, society does change, but it's changed in a much different way to what was foreseen. And what could possibly have happened.
Obviously, what I'm saying about modern society and reading is different to having brigades that go around burning all the books. But you could see the sort of the similarities in the way that people view reading.
And I could see books being outlawed, or something like that happening. But I couldn't see the kind of psychological change that would happen, because we know human nature stays very similar. Even though society changes a lot, the kind of things we like to do as people do stay very similar. I know you have very strange societies around the world, like where there is like a stranglehold on the media and things like that. But yeah, I think people are always going to be thinking for themselves. It's like with 1984. I was reading a book about language, and they were talking about Newspeak. I think the book was by Steven Pinker about the language language instinct, and it was talking about how with Newspeak it wouldn't really stop you having thoughts about revolution and things like that, because you can have thoughts that you can't put into words. Even if Newspeak took away most of the words that we would use in daily life, we'd still have concepts like, maybe we could have some more freedom or something like that. I mean, you don't need the words for it. So yeah, I thought this was a very interesting book. Yeah. And yeah, like I say, I would look forward to reading a few more by Ray Bradbury, and also some more classic sci-fi. Maybe not a dystopian one next time. Might go back to a bit more of the space type story. Well, I'm not sure which one I'm going to read next, but there's a few options. Yeah.
Okay. Well, so that's been Ray Bradbury, Fahrenheit 451. Richard's thoroughly enjoyed this.
Yeah, I did.
And hopefully I'll be bringing you a book on our next episode. I've got an idea of what it's going to be.
Okay. Have you read it yet?
No, but it's on the side ready for me to read.
Okay.
And actually it's a book which you'll find out is one that I was after for a very long time. It's an alternate history science fiction novel.
Nice.
So something a little bit different from my usual recommendations.
But not different from...
but not that different from Richard's.
Matt's going to be like me next time.
So this time I've been Matt. This has been Richard. Next time, this will be Matt, and I'll be Richard.
You have to sit in this chair when you talk about it. Okay.
That is the sci-fi chair.
Right, yeah.
Farewell, Quester. To find out about other productions by the Meddlesome Meeples, then check out our channel or rendezvous with us at meddlesomemeeples.com. Until next time, Quester, farewell, and keep thine axe sharp.